I bet even the biggest Disney fan doesn't know all these secrets at Disney California Adventure. Hey there, Mayhem fam. I am here at Disney California Adventure for another episode in our secret series. This is the series where I take you around the parks and we have a lovely day while looking for all those little details, Easter eggs, Imagineering backstories that make these places so special. I'm super excited to be in DCA today. I have some really fun details that Alan and I found when we were in the parks last week. Been doing lots of research. These are some of my favorite videos to make, so let's go. We start our venture in Disney California Adventure on Buena Vista Street. This is kind of like the main street of this park, and it has been fashioned to look like the 1920s Hollywood, which is when Walt and his brother Roy moved to Hollywood to begin their career with the Disney Brothers studio. Now, in the first version of this video, this is the part 2, I went into a lot more Easter eggs and a lot more history telling the story of Walt and Roy moving from Kansas City with only a few dollars in their pocket and a dream. But there are, of course, more Easter eggs to share that I didn't talk about in that first one, so we're going to start there. I know, I'm not going to lie to you, this video is fresh off us doing the nerd trip, as we called it, with Adventures by Disney, where we got to actually go to all these places in Hollywood, which just fueled my Easter egg hunt desires even more. Like this one right here. There's a store right here called the Kingswell Shop. That's because the street the original Disney Brothers studio was on, Kingswell. Also over here, this is called the Los Feliz 5 and Dime, as like your convenience store, if you will, from back in the Hollywood days. It would be called a 5 and Dime, and Los Feliz is the area of Hollywood where the studio was located. The second studio that the brothers owned was at 2719 Hyperion Avenue. That's where Snow White was completed until they moved to a bigger studio in Burbank, but it was right down the street from the Hyperion Bridge, which is what this bridge that the monorail crosses is modeled after. Honestly, anything on this street and Hollywood Boulevard in this park, it's modeled after something in actual Hollywood. Whether it be something the Disney Brothers and the Disney Company actually took place on or have historical ties to, or just be a famous building in Hollywood, literally everything in this area has history. I've made it inside that Kingswell shop to come look at this bulletin board, which I have shown before, but I always like coming to look at it and see if there are new things or different things I can point out. A couple of interesting ones. For starters, you've got room for lease right there, $5 per week. Ask for Robert. That's a nod to Walt and Roy's uncle Robert, who they actually lived with, rented a room from when they first moved. They've also got space for rent, and it's 4651 Kingswell Avenue. Well, that's the original studio when they were ready to rent that out. Needed a bigger space. You've also got the polo match right up there at the Riviera Country Club. That's where Walt Disney himself played polo. That's a famous country club in LA that has had tons of celebrity members, including Walt Disney, who actually played polo there. So that's a nod to one of his hobbies. And then down in the bottom, you've got a Pathé motion picture camera, slightly used, ideal for animation. That's an old style camera that the Disney company used, but when it got outdated and they invented new technology like the multiplane camera, they had to get rid of it. There's lots of other fun ones on here that I've shown in other videos. So just anytime you see, if you're interested in this kind of stuff, anytime you see like a bulletin board, just read everything you can, because I guarantee there's some kind of Easter egg or nod. Last one I'll point out, if you see the Atwater School of Art and Animation, it's got the different classes as well as who's instructing them. All of the instructors are the 9 old men who there's a sign for them outside as well. Those are Walt Disney's original animators, and whatever the class is, whatever the instructor is, that's the animator that was specialized in that, whether it be background or character, etc. Another fun thing to point out in here, right on the wall Eversharp pens and pencils, they've got these old ads for these different pens and pencils, and that's because Walt Disney was an OG influencer and actually endorsed these pens and pencils in advertisements. You can even see that this one says 1928, the Walt Disney Company, because they also made these advertisements for them because they got to make money somehow, and their pictures, you're struggling artist, you got to make money somehow. I can just imagine Walt with that hashtag ad, hashtag affiliate link. And speaking of Walt, of course, we've got Walt Disney right here. This statue is called Storytellers, and it depicts Walt and Mickey packing up in 1923 and moving out to Hollywood. There's even a plaque here that says he had $40 in his pocket and he packed up everything and he arrived on the Santa Fe California Limited train and he was in Hollywood. Got to take a picture with this, but there are some fun Easter eggs on the Walt Disney statue as well. For starters, if you look at the bottom of his shoe, It's marked as Marceline. Marceline wasn't Walt's where he was born. He was actually born in Chicago. His family moved to Marceline, Missouri when he was about 5 years old. And Marceline was very formative to him in those young childhood years. That Main Street USA in Disneyland was designed after that boyhood home. So you've got a Marceline nod there. And then if you look at Walt and Mickey's cases, they have some fun nods too. You've got Laugh-O-Grams. That was the original cartoon studio that Walt owned in Kansas City, which is why Mickey has a Kansas City bumper sticker on his tag. You've also got his Walt's luggage tag here. He's going from Kansas City to Los Angeles. Mickey's got a Los Angeles as well. Looks like Mickey's got some heart-shaped briefs right there. You've got Mickey's Santa Fe Limited train tag on there, his luggage tag, a Kansas City tag for Walt, Chicago, because again, that's where he was born, and the Alice comedies, one of Walt's first technological marvels when he was first able to put a real-life little girl into an animated background. Decades before Mary Poppins, Walt figured out the technology. Taking a quick break from Hollywood history, we'll hit more of that when we go to Hollywood Boulevard. We are now headed to Grizzly Peak. This is the land that has Soarin', it's got smoke jumpers, and when this park first opened, which again I talked about in the original version of this and the disaster that it was, but the theme of this park in California is the state of California, which for some reason people weren't exactly interested in, but this was supposed to be the mountainous region of California. So this is going to be lots of like wildlife, and they're going to talk a lot about the Smoke Jumpers firefighters. In fact, here is Smoke Jumpers Grill, where it has things like drop-ins welcome, water only, and fire retardant, which is mud. That comes from Disney partnering with the actual Cal Fire Hemet Ryan Air Attack Base, which are actual smoke jumpers in California. They wanted to learn from them as many things as they could, and at the Cal Fire base, they have a tank near their actual fire retardant tanks that just says Top Mud, which is kind of a joke. So Disney put that in as a joke to the as a reference to the actual base. We're going to get a little bit more information on that in a moment. My actual favorite Easter egg at Smoke Jumpers, if you look over at this bulletin board on the outside, there are a bunch of signs for different things, camps, notices, etc. And one of them is for Camp Inch. And the bottom of the sign says, time to switch places and find adventure. Let's get together. And if you are a fan of the Parent Trap, not the Lindsay Lohan version, but the original Haley Mills version, Camp Inch is the summer camp there. Hence the let's switch places and let's get together. Over here, we've got this lovely cross-country Rambler car that a family has packed up and is ready for hiking. And the license plate is Red 110. That is a nod to Roy E. Disney, Walt Disney's nephew, Roy Disney's son, who oversaw the animation division after both of them passed away. And his birthday, as you could probably guess, January 10th, 1956. You got this nice map here of the area and another Camp Inch little joke right there. We've got Smoke Jumpers, which we were just in, and you've also got Humphrey Service and Supplies. You're going to see lots of references to Humphrey. That's Humphrey the bear around this land. He is he's actually up there. You can see him right there. He's an older cartoon bear that Disney used in a lot of their different shorts. There's another reference to him right here, and there's also a reference to the Rainbow Caverns, which is used to be at Big Thunder Mountain Railroad. It used to be a mine through Rainbow Ridge, and you saw these beautiful caverns and things. So that's a nod to the original ride there. Hey there, Humphrey. Humphrey the bear first debuted in 1950 in a Goofy cartoon called Hold That Pose. And he also appeared in several Donald Duck cartoons over the years. But he's this very cute little bear. And I love that they've got him around here in Grizzly Peak, even though he's maybe not very well known anymore. In fact, this merchandise shop right here is called Humphrey Service and Supplies. And here you can see another reference to an older cartoon character that actually is friends with, or I guess I could say against Humphrey the bear. He doesn't like his shenanigans, which honestly, how could you be mad at Humphrey? He probably just wants a hug and a picnic basket. But you can see here that if you want to go on a hike throughout Grizzly Peak, it is going to be led by Ranger J. Abaddon Woodlore, who is the cartoon character and the ranger from the Humphrey cartoons. And J. Abaddon Woodlore is also the narrator if you go ride Grizzly River Rapids. He is your guide there as well. We will not be riding that because water, but fun that this little random cartoon character gets an appearance in a Disney park. While you're at Humphrey Service Station, you can fill up on some gas if you need to, and it's called Condor Gas because when this park first opened, this section was actually called Condor Flats. Popping over to the side of the restrooms, you have some lockers right here, and this is where we're going to talk a little bit more about that real air fire base. These lockers, as well as this lookout control tower here, are modeled after the real Hemet Ryan Air Force Base. The Imagineers teamed up with the captains there, Lucas Spellman and Richard Cordova, because as always, Disney wanted to make things as accurate as possible, make sure their theming was as immersive as it could be. And as a thank you to those real-life fire captains, again, Spellman and Cordova, if you look right here on this piece of paper, you've got some different assignments and things you need to look out for. And then at the bottom it says, volunteers needed for special assignments, contact Captain Cordova or Captain Spellman for info. But I think my favorite story that came about when researching this video was when I looked up who Spellman and Cordova were, because I knew they had to be someone. I assumed Imagineers, but I like it even more that they're the actual smoke jumpers captains. And as you can see throughout these cases, there's a lot of antique firefighter equipment. And in an article I read from 2015, when they were talking about the newly remodeled area here, again, this used to be called Condor Flats, they were talking to Captains Cordova and Spellman about their influence with Disney, and they talked about this antique firefighter equipment. This was actually Captain Spellman's. He said he found it at a garage sale years and years ago, and as a firefighter, he knew this was antique fireman equipment, so he had to buy it. He said he knew it had seen a lot of fire, and he felt like he needed to own it. Something about it made him, as a firefighter, it possessed him to buy this stuff. And he said it was just sitting in his garage for over a decade collecting dust, and that's when Disney reached out to them and were partnering with them to learn all about the airfield and all about what they needed to do here. And Disney actually said, the Imagineers said, do you know where we can buy antique fire equipment to decorate these areas? And he's like, I actually just so happen to have some, and I'd love to give it to you, because now millions of people are going to see this antique fire equipment that people used. Isn't that so cool? Right outside Soarin', there is a prevent forest fires, greater danger than ever, and it is Bambi and Flower and Thumper, and it says, please, mister, don't be careless. And you might be thinking, oh, that was so fun they invented that for this area, how themed. And it was actually copyright by Walt Disney Production, done by the U.S. Department of Agriculture. I didn't know this till researching this video after seeing this poster. This was a real poster that was used. It was the first time a cartoon character mascot was used as a prevent forest fires slogan campaign. And it was so popular and so successful that this is what led to the creation of Smokey the Bear, who is still our beloved Prevent Forest Fires mascot.
Hello there, folks. This is Smokey, the forest fire preventing bear.
This is one land that I don't ever spend much time in because the only attraction is a water ride, but it really is so beautiful and there's so many cool things to look at. Like this poster that I think looks like the Schitt's Creek poster. Popping into Russian River Supplies. This is the merchandise shop at the outside of Grizzly River Run. And first of all, not super detail, not a super like specific Easter egg, but I just love this bear that's looking at his compass. Doesn't he look so happy? Like you could definitely hug him. The detail in this whole area is incredible with all the hiking gear and the postcards and the maps. Even though not all of it is specific to something, it's just beautiful in this whole area. So if you're like me and don't pay a lot of attention in here because you also don't want to get wet, I recommend it. I love that sign. We love toboggan with you. But on this wall right here, you've got a mural of a bunch of different peaks and elevations, and you have their elevation specifically, but you have Grizzly Peak, which is the big mountain right here by Grizzly River Rapids, one of the icons of the park, and the elevation is 2001 because that's the year this park opened. Speaking of places I don't go often, the Redwood Creek Challenge Trail is literally so cute. It's like the most fun kids-themed play area I've ever seen in a theme park. And I wish I was smaller to do some of the activities and the different experiences they have around here. But there is one that is a reference and a nod to one of the most underrated Disney movies ever, Brother Bear. In fact, there's actually a lot of Brother Bear nods around here because that movie was coming out when this park was. Unfortunately, that movie didn't do great, so they're kind of lost on people. But like seriously, isn't this so beautiful? And you can do little activities, like it'll say like look out for these tracks, and then if you look at the ground there's all different animal tracks to figure out. We've got bird watching. Look at these. See, I wish I was little enough, but I think I am too big for some of this fun. A little more of Jay Abaddon and Humphrey though, which along with Huey, Dewey, and Louie. But one activity I am big enough for, or not too big for, is to go into Kenai's Spirit Cave, which is again from Brother Bear, and you can figure out which creature is your spirit. I don't want to call it a spirit animal. That's insensitive. Just touch the hand inside and see what animal it says shares your qualities. Okay, here we go. Also, Brother Bear fans, shout out in the comments. Look, there's Brother Bear. There's Coda and Kenai. There's the bears trying to catch their salmon. There's bears learning humans are the worst. There's Kenai becoming a bear. And now let's find out who my animal is. Ooh! A wolf. Love that for me. I'm going to see what that means in a second, but first I have to show one more detail, and that's the moose Rut and Tuck from the movie. It says that I am wise and loyal. Not going to lie to you guys, Alan and I did this the other day, and I got bear, which also makes sense, loving and strong, and Alan got skunk or beaver, but it's funny regardless. Hi, Nick. How are you? How's popsicle sales going today? Pretty good. I like your under-the-table business deals. You and I, we have some stuff in common. Yeah, you get it. You get it. Judy signed off? Good for you. Would never do any more tricks. Never. Uh-huh. No loopholes for Nick. Mm-hmm. I know you. Nick Wilde had like no lines, so I jumped in there, and because he's fun. And here I am talking about his under-the-table business deals, and like I literally forgot I had on a shirt with his face on it until he was like, and I was like, oh yeah, that is you. He's so cute. I was just too excited to talk to him about his business. You know, I feel like we have a lot in common. Making our way now into Paradise Gardens, which is kind of a turn-of-the-century Atlantic City boardwalk style theme. It actually used to be bigger when it extended into Paradise Pier, but they turned that into Pixar Pier many years ago as a definite glow-up. However, Paradise Gardens still exists, and this is where you're going to find things like Jumpin' Jellyfish and the Golden Zephyr, but also Goofy Sky School, our next stop. Goofy Sky School is a cat and mouse style roller coaster similar to, may it rest in peace, Primeval Whirl at Disney's Animal Kingdom. But it is Goofy themed, so you know you're going to have some fun along the way. For example, he tells you to watch out for chickens a lot, and then you see chickens a lot on the coaster. I don't know why Goofy thinks flying involves barnyard creatures, but he did the same thing at Magic Kingdom. Anyway, if you look at some of the signage around, you're going to see things have been signed by the Paradise Pier Bureau of Farming, and that is J. Kinney. That is a nod to the animator Jack Kinney, who was the primary director on a bunch of the Goofy shorts. You also will see things as a nod to Mr. Bertino, which is a nod to Al Bertino, who was actually the inspiration for Big Al, the country bear. Speaking of the country bears, one of my favorite signs in the queue shows that Goofy's buying moonshine for fuel from Big Al at the Backwood Brewery, which, like, Goofy, I don't know about that, man, but I guess that's good collaboration between Goofy and the country bears. And again, Al Bertino, Big Al, was an animator on a lot of Goofy shorts. There's also a bulletin board for an asphalt service, and the owner of this, or the person you're supposed to contact, is Claude Coates. He was a background animator for Disney Animation, and then he became a lead Imagineer on popular attractions such as the Haunted Mansion. So I love that. And then there's also a flyer from the Babbitt Employment Agency, which is a nod to Art Babbitt, one of the Goofy's main animators from the shorts and the cartoons. And last poster, but certainly not least poster I'm going to point out, is there's actually a flyer from Mickey Mouse inviting people to attend the premiere of the short, The Band Concert, which is a nod to Silly Symphony Swings right over here, because those are themed to the band concert. Lesson 1, how to take off. All right. Now we're skipping Pixar Pier today. Somehow I didn't find any new Easter eggs when we were wandering about or we were doing research. There's a lot of them that I talked about in the first episode of DCA Secrets, but I didn't find any new ones. So we're headed instead to a different land. That's not to say I know all the secrets. Pixar specifically is very good at hiding Easter eggs and things. So if you know of any good Pixar Pier Easter eggs, definitely drop those in the comments. Beep bopping into San Fransokyo Square, which is one of the newest Disneylands in the world. Well, kind of. It's one of the newest themes of a land in the world. This used to be Pacific Wharf, and then it was redone last year to be the San Fransokyo from Big Hero 6. And I honestly think this is such a good refresh. Breathe some new life into this area with some really fun theming and beloved characters. And I know I talked a lot about the different details in here when I did the first video on this land being redone, when I also tried all the food and did all the things, but I wanted them to live in a secrets video, so I'm gonna show you some of my favorites again. Hello, bird. Hello. Do you only have one leg? Or are you hiding your other leg? I'm very concerned for you. Hello. Oh, you have two legs. Okay. Bye. First up, Aunt Cass Cafe. Here's where you can get those delicious sourdough bread bowls full of soup. And this land takes place in the world where Big Hero 6 the movie has already happened, and Big Hero 6, the 6 individual characters, are known as superheroes, and everyone loves them in the town. So they, of course, are going to endorse things. They're going to do brand deals, and they're going to help out family members like Hero's Aunt Cass, and they're all going to say how much they love Aunt Cass Cafe. So inside, you've got a couple different posters, each of them saying what they love about it, and my favorite is Baymax's, because it just says, "I don't have a mouth." There's also very cute family photos on the wall, including some pictures where a young hero has dressed up Mochi, Aunt Cass's cat, as Stitch. He looks thrilled, as cats do. As always, bulletin boards and signs and posters are a great place to find Easter eggs, and you may see one around here for the Wharfside Travel Agency, which is a nod to Pacific Wharf, the former habitant of this area. Also here in San Fransokyo Makers Market, which is the little merchandise area, you're going to see some details from the movie, including Hero's bot that he uses to fight in the opening bot fight scenes. He actually is fighting this robot right here from Mr. Yama. And then you also have one of the masks from Yokai, the villain, up top. But possibly the cutest little Easter egg in here, if you look all the way up on that beam right there that's got the light fixtures, the second light fixture from the right has a little hidden Baymax. Over this way is where you can actually meet Hero and Baymax, but they're not here right now, so I have a little easier access to show you things. Like this recycling bin, you'll hear it make noise and rattle, and it's because the microbots are in there. Additionally, you can see that some of the other members of Big Hero 6 have been here. Oh, there it goes. You have the very organized tools right here of Wasabi, as well as Go-Go's bike. And then I didn't notice this till I was able to get closer without the cubing here for the characters, but you've got the San Fransokyo Tribune here, and it talks about things like kicking off Big Hero 6 Day. This is my favorite. Crytek hits an all-time low. Alistair Cray is the villain, so we love to see him failing. Also, Aunt Cass Cafe, local business, opens in San Fransokyo Square. Cute little details. Oh, and the Golden State Samurai, that is the basketball team in the city, that Tadashi, Hero's brother that tragically dies in the movie, that's the basketball team whose hat he's always wearing. Vrooming along into Cars Land, the most unbelievable land in this park as far as the theming and the scale and the design goes. I mean, just look at this. Look at all this. It's jaw-dropping every time. And there are a ton of Cars details and Easter eggs, but I'm happy to report we found some new ones as well. For starters, Hidden Mickey fans, this one's for you. I don't always believe in Hidden Mickeys unless they're clearly intentional by the Imagineers, like this one. If you look up at that power cable right there, you can see it has been looped into a 3-circle Mickey. There's no way a guest did that. There's no way maintenance did that. That's an Imagineering Hidden Mickey, which to me makes it a real one. One of the funniest Easter eggs is watching the light in the middle of Radiator Springs, because if you watch the end credit scene with Fillmore and Sarge, Fillmore's the hippie van, and Sarge is the military car, and they are always in conflict with one another. And Fillmore says,
"I'm telling you, man, every third blink is slower."
The 60s weren't good to you, were they?
But if you watch the light, 1, 2, 3. 3's definitely longer. Fillmore was right. Right here, we've got Flo's V8 Cafe, where you can get delicious eats such as fried chicken. And the outside of it is actually designed to be a V8 engine, which Alan had to explain what that means to me. But basically, you've got the 8 cylinders right here in the courtyard of the restaurant, and it's easier to see when it's at night, but you can actually see them lighting up because they're firing the different cylinders. Popping into Radiator Springs Curios, which was actually closed the last time I did this. But I do think this is my favorite Easter egg in the land. If you look up here at these snow globes, which look like different roadside spots across the world, except for the third one from the right, it is the snowman snow globe from the Pixar short Knick Knack. Knick Knack debuted in 1989 and was the 4th short Pixar did and the last short they did before Toy Story, which didn't come out until 1995. So you can see how long it took to go from a short like Knick Knack all the way to Toy Story, but I love that little detail right there. It says, Gnome, Sweet Gnome. Last thing we're going to in Cars Land, I don't normally do seasonal things in these videos just because I like them to be a little bit more year-round, but there is such a cute Easter egg that, have to say it, even though it's a Halloween thing, if you come over here to the Cozy Cone Motel, for starters, one of the best Easter eggs in all of the parks is that under some of the cones, you've got the feet of Ham, Slinky Dog, and Buzz Lightyear as a nod to the part in Toy Story 2 when they are trying to go across the street to get into Al's toy barn and save Woody. You can see them right there. But if you look in the back, it's hard to see in the daylight, but I have nighttime footage to add in here as well. There is a set from one of the Cars shorts and it's themed to Psycho. So it's the Brakes Motel instead of the Bates Motel. And the little car out there is the actual car famously used in the movie. And then you can see Mother's house up on the hill as well. Hilarious. Especially, I love it because that's a Universal movie. So that's their competition, but I love that they included that regardless because it's such an iconic horror film. Oh. It's Gamora. She's just here. I was just talking to Shang-Chi. Now, hello, Gamora. She's just here, hanging out, doing awesome Gamora things. Oh, I love Avengers. I literally just had no one's talking to Shang-Chi. I literally just had a 5-minute conversation with him and no one was coming up. I don't know if because it's Oogie Boogie Night, people think he's just a guest, but that's the real Shang-Chi. We're making a plan to get rid of all the hot dogs. He's not as on board as I am, but we're going to use the power of the 10 rings for good. Anyway, we're going to talk now about Web Slingers: A Spider-Man Adventure, because this ride has so many Easter eggs in it, and it's like every time you look around, there's a new one to find when you are in the pre-show area. You got things in the claw machine, you got things on the desk, but I noticed one last time I rode that I've not talked about yet, and I'm honestly going to ask DCA to pay for my therapy bills after seeing it. Okay, first of all, not a sad one, but when the spider bots start destroying things, they destroy an OG Iron Man mask, like the one he made in the cave in the first Iron Man. Tony Stark built this in a cave! The spider bots destroy that piece of history, so we're gonna need somebody to go back and get it so that we can have that artifact. But the last time I rode this ride, I rode it in single rider, and I've never done single rider, and it puts you into the back of the pre-show room, and there's little knickknacks and things, so of course I'm looking around because that's what it's like to go to a park with me. And I saw a can of wipes, like Lysol wipes, but they were not Lysol brand, they were Walrus brand. Do I feel passionate about walruses? Not generally. Was it like the walrus from Alice in Wonderland? No. It was Teefs. It was Teefs from Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Rocket's walrus friend. And if you've seen Guardians of the Galaxy 3, you know what happens to Teefs. I'm upset. The only thing worse, you could put Lila on there, I'd be in shambles. But Teefs? Why, Marvel? Why, Teefs? Anyway, this ride's really fun. And the single rider line, very quick, pro tip. Avengers Campus opened in 2020, and it replaced a Bugs Land, which was obviously a Bugs Life themed land. And there's a bunch of Easter eggs I've pointed out before, but a new one I just discovered is that these lights outside of Pym Tasting Lab, those are actually left over from a Bugs Land. They're the same decor they used, and they just moved it over here, which is nice. And speaking of bugs, Cassie Lang, aka Scott Lang's daughter, aka Ant-Man's daughter, she had to do a science project. And it's hanging on display here in Pym Test Kitchen, the quick service restaurant. And she's showing how to use Pym Tech, which which is the technology in the Ant-Man universe that makes things bigger and smaller, how to reduce food waste. And I was in here the other day, and I noticed that those trash cans the ants are moving looked pretty familiar. These are all famous trash cans around Disney. They're the iconic Disney trash can shape. You've got Pixar Pier, Adventureland, Galaxy's Edge, Fantasyland, and here in Avengers Campus. Good thinking, Cassie. Also out here at Pim Tasting Lab, where you can get delicious beers, you've got this giant beer can, which is what they're using as like a keg for all the other beers to be poured from. And I noticed last time that it was made with Asgardian ale, which is a Thor reference. But Alan pointed out to me that it also is called Silver Age since 1956, which is a nod to the Silver Age of comics, which started in 1956. And now let's chit-chat about the best attraction, I think, in the whole park. At least it's my favorite, if not objectively the best. The objective best is probably Radiator Springs Racers, but I digress. Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout. There are so many Easter eggs to be found. I've talked a lot about them before. I'm sorry I keep saying that in this video. Don't make that a drinking game. But we've got brand new ones thanks to amazing, amazing cast members. First of all, shout out to Karina, this incredible cast member who saw Alan and I here the other day and was like, oh my gosh, I know you guys like Easter eggs. Do you want to know some in the collector's office? And I was like, yes, obviously, please. And she gave us a full tour of the office. And she's actually what inspired this video, because I had completely different concepts to film when I was here, but she told me so many cool things in the Guardians of the Galaxy pre-show room that I was like, I have to do a new secrets video. And thus I then spent the next 2 days researching a bunch of other things and looking for a bunch of other things to put in this video. So thank you, Karina. And if you're liking this video, you can owe it all to her. But I will tell you, most everything I'm about to talk about right now is in the pre-shows. There are 2 different collector's offices for the pre-show. You could either get sent to the left or to the right. Some of these things are only in one of them, so you're gonna have to look hard, and if you don't see it, then it is in the other one. So you'd have to write it twice to find them all. For starters, on the collector's desk, he's got this little case thing that's got a couple different sections in it. In the top section, you have the collector's kind of funky glasses that you can see him wearing in the pre-show. One of the offices has the real ones that Benicio del Toro actually wore when shooting the pre-show. The other one is an exact replica. And in both of them, there's a little statue of a frog wearing a beautiful armored helmet, as well as holding Mjolnir. And that's a nod to Frog Thor, which is a reference to a comic book where Thor is literally a frog. You actually saw that as an Easter egg in the show Loki as well. In one of the collector's offices, there is a hidden Mickey on a bookshelf tucked behind a couple books. And on the other one, there is a hidden Minnie. And when I say hidden Mickey and Minnie, I mean literally an antique figurine of either Mickey or Minnie hidden in the shelves. Also hidden amongst the shelves, a Do Not Disturb placard is being used as a bookmark. And that Do Not Disturb placard came from a hotel, specifically the Hollywood Tower Hotel, because this used to be Tower of Terror. And speaking of Tower of Terror, in both of the collector's offices, there is a hidden bellhop hat. It's pretty hard to see since it's dark in there, but if you ask a cast member, they hopefully can show it to you if you want to see it. Also on the desk, you're going to see that the collector has gotten an invoice from XS Tech. This is a nod to the extraterrestrial alien encounter and extinct attraction in Magic Kingdom, because XS Tech was actually the company that was sponsoring that attraction as well. So they're clearly all about some seedy under the table business deals and maybe not quite on a good moral path, which is also like the collector. Also on the desk, you're going to find a book about animal life and fauna written by Rhodey. That is a nod to Imagineering legend Joe Rhodey, who oversaw this attraction re-theme at the same time he was overlooking the Avatar land. The two launched about a week apart, and he was in charge of both of them because he's a hero and a genius. And lastly, if you watch the pre-show itself, not the Monsters After Dark pre-show, but the classic pre-show, you'll see that the collector has a skeletal dog on his desk. And then at one point after Rocket mutes him, nobody's paying attention to the collector anymore. Everybody's watching Rocket, but the collector actually picks up this skeletal dog and is looking at it. That is a hellhound, which is one of the dogs seen in the graveyard scenes of Haunted Mansion. Next to the letter on the collector's desk, you've got a pneumatic tube with a wanted poster for Mantis. Now, the collectors also collected, things from different Marvel characters if you look in his shelves. In one of the offices, you're going to see an alien gun. This was used by the aliens in the first Avengers movie. And the other, you're going to see a gun that was used by Agent Coulson in the first Avengers movie before he's tragically killed by Loki. That part always makes me cry. Shortly after Coulson's killed, Nick Fury uses him as a reason to unite the Avengers. And speaking of Nick Fury, in one of the offices there is a tray of a bunch of Nick Fury's eyeballs. On a shelf, you are going to see an Egyptian statue. That was a prop actually screen used in the Disney Plus show Moon Knight. And lastly, if you look at the bottom shelf of the collector's office, you're going to see a face. Those are actual Small World doll faces, which makes it the most terrifying thing that he's collected. That's because Mantis is the only Guardian that collector hasn't captured yet, but he wants her. But unfortunately for him, Mantis is instrumental in Rocket's plan to help everyone escape. And that's not the first sign that the collector is a certified Disney adult. I've talked about how he's got a Figment animatronic up hanging from the ceiling in the first part of the queue, and later in the queue he's got a big Yeti on a shelf before you load into your elevator after the pre-show. That's the original Yeti from the Matterhorn. But what's also right on the same shelf as the Yeti is an octopus skeleton, and that is Dolores the octopus, which was used in the summer overlay at Country Bear Jamboree, Country Bear Vacation Hoedown, which no longer exists here in Disneyland, but I recently got to see it in Tokyo, and let me just say, it's something. Honestly, the best version of Country Bears I've ever seen. And the last thing I'm going to say about Guardians of the Galaxy is that if you've ever wondered why the collector's allowed to be here, why Tony Stark and Doctor Strange would allow a less than good character to take up residence in their land, well, if you look at these orange tubes that are all over the building here, those are actually celestial spinal fluid. Celestials are gods like Ego in Guardians of the Galaxy 2, and he's using them to power up not only his section, his collection at the tower, but all of Avengers Campus. So, Tony Stark, not being a bad businessman, decides, all right, he could stay, because he's powering our whole campus with his special space fluid, which you can actually see more of and see it labeled in the queue area. Hooray for Hollywood. That's usually what I say when I get into Hollywood Studios, but now I'm saying it to get into Hollywood Boulevard, Hollywoodland, here in California Adventure. Now, like I said earlier, every single one of these buildings is designed after a famous building in Hollywood during the Golden Age. Not going to go over every single one, but we do have some highlights to share, starting with this lovely facade right here, this backdrop using forced perspective to make it look as though the street goes on, and you can take a picture and pretend you're on Hollywood Boulevard in real Hollywood. But a couple things to point out for sure. You've got the El Capitan Theater. They are currently presenting Pinocchio. The El Capitan Theater, we got to tour it recently, is Disney's actual theater on the Walk of Fame, where they bought it in the 80s and refurbished it to be back to its original glory, and now that's where a lot of Disney movie premieres happen. You've also got the Hyperion Theater right here, named after the studio that I mentioned earlier where Snow White was drawn. And then you've also got the Roosevelt Hotel, which is a real hotel in Hollywood, and the lobby of it was the inspiration for the Hollywood Tower Hotel lobby design at the Tower of Terror. And Alan and I actually went to the Roosevelt Hotel in the El Capitan, as well as some other iconic places in Hollywood recently on our Adventures by Disney trip. So definitely check those videos out as well. On the right here, there's a bigger nod to this in Hollywood Studios I've talked about, but you have Fairfax Market, which is a nod to the first kind of open air market in California, in Hollywood, where farmers would come bring their trucks and people would enjoy picking fresh produce and different items. And it still exists today. And that's also where the Sunset Market Ranch gets its inspiration in Hollywood Studios. Across the street, you have some fictional businesses, but the one that made me laugh is the sweet shop named Desire, where the proprietor is Stella. Stella! Let's pop over and do the best ride in this land. Well, it's the only ride in this land, but I do quite enjoy it regardless. Monsters, Inc., Mike and Sully to the rescue. This is a cute dark ride that takes you into the Monsters, Inc. story. And I've said it before, I'll say it a million times. I regret that I never got to see the original occupant of this ride space, which was Superstar Limo, which is said to have been like the worst ride Disney's ever built. And if you have been on it, please let me know in the comments. Paint me a word picture. I'm so envious of you. But a couple of new things to look for that have nothing to do with Superstar Limo. In the queue, you are going to see a newspaper for the Monstropolis Horn. It is dated August 14th, 2001, because that is when Monsters, Inc. was released. You're also going to see that they have a story called The Black Lagoon to be Drained and Filled, which is a nod to the classic Universal monster, the creature from the Black Lagoon. And one of the journalists for the Horn is Al Wiggins, who is the villain who's trying to save you a buck, buck, buck from Toy Story 2. My favorite new details I just found out about the ride, though, are both on the ride. For starters, when you are going through Harryhausen's, the sushi restaurant, outside you can see a crowd running and panicking because there's a human, there's a child, and one of them is Mickey Mouse. If you look very closely, one of the silhouettes is Mickey running through. It's a black silhouette, it's very fast, but it's really, really fun. Also, speaking of human children, you may know that the code for that is 2319.
2319!
That's because the 23rd letter of the alphabet is W. The 19th letter of the alphabet is S. That's WS, which stood for white sock, which is what the monster gets on the back of his shirt, which causes the 2319. And last thing, but not the least thing to look for, is at the very end of the attraction, Boo is seen hitting Randall on the head with a club, and he keeps changing his pattern because he's a camouflage monster, and one of the patterns is the famous Haunted Mansion wallpaper. Let's hope we can see it.
If witnesses are to be believed, there has been a child security breach for the first time in monster history.
Baby dance like a chicken. My thoughts were not my own.
We gotta get you home.
There's a kid, a human kid.
Birthday! I thought you cared about me.
There's your door.
We're almost there, kiddo. Not so fast, son.
All right, I've got one more to show you. We walked past it earlier, but that was intentional. And I think I've saved the best Easter egg for last. So this is the side of the animation building right here where you've got that incredible screen showing different concept art. It's also where you can take a class to learn how to draw a Disney character. And it was actually inspired by the Burbank studio lot where Disney's animation studios have been since the 40s and are still there today. And you can see that they've got the same style windows that they have on the studio. The studio was designed very uniquely because they didn't have a lot of overhead lighting when it was built, so they designed it in an H shape to give every animator a window so that they could have enough lighting to draw. And they put special shutters on those windows with different cranks so they could adjust the lighting as needed. Now these don't actually adjust and don't actually crank, but it does look like the real ones on the lot. But it was said that Walt Disney's office at the animation studio was the top left office. So here, right on the corner of Hollywood Boulevard, right before you get into Avengers Campus, look at these windows at night because only one light has been left on. Just like over the fire station in Walt's apartment in Disneyland where the light is always left on, this office light is always left on as well, as a symbol of the fact that Walt is always here overlooking his guests and wishing them a good night. Well, friends, that is a wrap on my second episode of Secrets Here in Disney California Adventure. Hopefully you had fun following along. Like I said earlier, these are some of my favorite videos to make. I think these little details are what make these parks so special. So I hope you had fun. Let me know your favorite secret down in the comments. In the meantime, friends, make sure to rate, review, subscribe, follow us on social media, come hang out with the Man Fave and Discord. And until next time, friends, I'm Molly, and it has been truly so magical.